Charlie Jacobs has spoken out about the recent moves from Cam Neely and Don Sweeney at this year's NHL trade deadline, and a lot of people are going to be shocked with what he had to say. We're going to be breaking down all of these quotes and going over what this means for the Boston Bruins going forward here in this video very quickly. Before we get into it, though, we're currently at 6,148 subscribers. Your guys' support has been absolutely insane the past 2 days since the NHL trade deadline. And we're getting subs at a very quick rate. And we know the goal is to ultimately surpass the Boston Bruins. But let's see if we can push it to 7,000. We're on the road there. But without any further ado, let's get into this video. Starting off here with the Bruins CEO Charlie Jacobs' quote on Don Sweeney and Cam Neely. This is what he had to say. Charlie Jacobs says the hockey operations team, led by Cam Neely and Don Sweeney, has his full support as the organization shifts course towards what is hopefully a new era of success, is what he is calling it. And we were very interested here over at Bruins Digest to kind of listen in on what Charlie Jacobs had to say about this year's trade deadline. And of course, this was a very good one for the Boston Bruins. They got a lot more value than what was initially projected. A lot of players that are going to be very interesting for the future of the Boston Bruins, as well as a lot of picks, a lot of prospects. And realistically, the only move that caused a bit of concern for Bruins fans was the move for Brad Marchand to the Florida Panthers, but there are apparently some external things that there was not much that Don Sweeney and Cam Neely were able to do here in this instance that will be covered at a later date and when Brad Marchand speaks out on the topic. But Charlie Jacobs saying that he has full support for the kind of the new era of the Boston Bruins with Don Sweeney and Cam Neely really gives us a very big insight at what the plan may be for this year's offseason. And we were very interested in what the possibilities are of both of these guys, Cam Neely and Don Sweeney, getting fired by the organization after a terrible beginning to the season. Off-season last year, we could also include in that with the additions of Nikita Zadorov, the addition of Elias Lindholm. Both of those guys really have not been playing up to where they were supposed to be. And of course, the moves definitely seemed okay at the time. But really looking back on it now, they were not the moves to be made at the time. But it's tough to kind of judge Don Sweeney on that for those two moves in specific. But there certainly should have been more done with this and a much cleaner offseason as a whole. But with Charlie Jacobs coming out and saying that he is loving the idea of what they're doing and got their full support, there's going to be a very big sign that we may see Don Sweeney and Cam Neely here longer than what a lot of fans have initially projected. As, you know, this is going to be a very busy offseason for this Bruins team, and the trust has to be in someone who knows what they're doing, and the question is still there. Is Don Sweeney that guy? And when we do look at the offseason projections, the projected cap over the next few seasons, this year, we're at $1 million, but of course, when we jump over to the next, $28 million to make a move. Brad Marchand's contract extension is no longer going to be on the table. There are quite a few other moves that have to be made, including Morgan Geekie really being the biggest one now. Casey Middlestat has got his new deal already signed. A guy like Henry Jokiharju, who actually requested a trade out of Buffalo, now with the Boston Bruins in a trade, could be another one that could be making a little bit of money. Nothing too crazy, but the Bruins now have a lot of money that they can allocate in free agency, in the trade market. Wherever they choose to spend and add in this offseason, they have that availability now with the cap space going up, plus the players going to be expiring and some that may not be coming back. We're looking at some big moves needing to be made, especially with how young this team is. They're definitely kind of be lacking on at least some aspect of the score sheet at this point. I do think that a lot of these younger players that got brought over and a lot of the players that got brought over by via trade will be a big factor for the remainder of the season and get a good idea of how things will play out next season. But as we do still look at the lines that are featured here in tonight's game against the Tampa Bay Lightning, these lines still don't scream any competitive team just yet, but with a lot of these players here, I do like what is coming here at the future. And with the first line staying the same, we really see some differences all down the lineup, mainly the middle two, where we see Casey Middlestat at center, Huzi and Jacob Lauko in between Elias Lindholm on the third line. Really goes once again to show that Elias Lindholm was not the move to be made at the time, but it is going to be a very busy offseason, and Don Sweeney is going to be, at least what it seems like right now, from Charlie Jacobs, what he had to say at the forefront of it. And this is what Don Sweeney had to say about this year's deadline. He said, "We didn't burn it down. We have a lot of guys. A couple of those guys in particular are injured that are big players and pieces for our group. Now we have to do a better job of building around it and charting the course that says we're back." And I do like what Don Sweeney says here, and obviously I think it's a bit of an exaggeration to say that we didn't burn it down, because it certainly did seem like that was the case. This was not a retool. This was not the retool that Cam Neely was speaking about. This really did seem like a rebuild. Now, you still keep your guys in Charlie McAvoy, in Elias Lindholm, in David Pastrnak, in Jeremy Swayman. Realistically, the three that probably had the most trade value for this team to begin with are still here. So you have your key pieces. You're getting rid of a guy like Brad Marchand, who had that uncertainty of his future, certainly would have and still can come back to this Bruins team, although there is questions surrounding that now. And apart from that, you're really getting rid of a few guys that were holding up a bit of a heavy contract and not playing to that level. So they did open it up a lot. They have a few assets still available. Now they have quite a bit of picks, some prospects. It really did help this team out and just kind of set it back only a little bit without damaging too much of the future of this team. So I actually do like what Don Sweeney is saying here. What do you guys think in the comments below? Let me know what you think about this quote in specific, because Don Sweeney, as I'm sure many of you know who've been here for a while, and those who are new to the channel, we've had that focus on Don Sweeney just about this entire season, about what is going to happen in the offseason, and it does seem like he understood what he did in that direction, and the more we kind of get after the trade deadline, the more it makes a lot of sense coming down to it. But it still will be a matter of time until we see him make these moves. Will they be the right ones, and is he going to have someone else to help him along this way? I think is going to be the big question, because when we look at the people who have left and the people that have came in, the grade of a B+ from The Athletic certainly is a very good grading. Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle, Brandon Carlo, Trent Frederic, Max Jones, Justin Brazeau, Mark McLaughlin, a 4th-round pick, and a 5th-round pick. You're getting, a numerous amount of picks, quite a few great prospects, some players that can make the NHL right now that are going to be an impact a few years down the line, that once they develop and get a bit better, that will be a great opportunity. Casey Mittelstadt, someone who has not had the greatest season according to reports, but I still think it's a pretty good one and is going to hopefully kind of turn his career around after being labeled a bust. But the big question with Don Sweeney is what's going to happen when it comes down to the draft. The draft is not Don Sweeney's specialty, and I think that's been no surprise to any Bruins fan. And when we look at the draft picks that the Bruins have, they recouped a lot. And of course, the 4th and 5th round in 25 and 26 respectively were gone in this year's deadline. But looking this year, 1 first-rounder, 2 second-rounders, a 3rd, a 5th, a 6th, a 7th. Next year, in a very, very good draft, keep in mind, 2 firsts, a 2nd, a 3rd, a 4th, a 6th, and a 7th. And then in 2027, a 1st, 2 seconds, which could turn into a 1st in 2028 for Brad Marchand, a 4th, a 5th, a 6th, and a 7th. The Bruins are really looking to, gain these assets and be able to use those when it does come down to it, whether that is make the picks with those picks or use those picks for trades when it comes down to, the 26, 27, 28 types of years. And I do think in 2026, those first-round picks are going to gain a lot of value, especially with the players there, and depending on, first of all, who the Bruins, where they are in the standings and where their other pick is in the standings. And those picks could have quite a bit of value, which could completely alter, any aspect of this Bruins team if things come down to it. And I do like the idea of this, and the trade deadline made a lot of sense and made this team really, head in a much better direction, believe it or not, than what it did seem like. So I want to know what you guys think, because when we're looking at this lineup right here, it's obviously missing a lot of pieces, but once again, as Don Sweeney's mentioned, there's a lot of injuries, a lot of players, and a lot of moves are going to be made in the offseason. And I do like the idea of what is going down. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below about this deadline. What do you think about Charlie Jacobs? Do you want Don Sweeney to be making these decisions from the way that this deadline, kind of went down? I don't hate the idea of it now. And for those who know, I was opposed to it before, but if Don Sweeney's making these right moves, if he has an advisor or someone kind of hinting him in the right direction, it certainly does seem like these could be some very important moves over the next season and a bit, and 2 seasons, when this whole rebuild, I guess we can call it at this point, is well underway and nearly done. So let me know what you think in the comments below. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. But I'm signing out. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.